Here we go, baby. We're getting into the meat here. Congrats on making it to the second section of this course. You should be proud of yourself. And we're making big steps forward. So let's get into it. Pre-checklist before you begin tackling your debt. When should you start trying to pay off your debt? Immediately. Of course, that's the answer you were expecting. However, I believe that there is a miniature checklist to crank out before beginning to pay off your debt. There's two things that you should do. The first being you should have 2 grand saved in an emergency fund or 1 month's expenses saved, whichever is greater between those two. And that's money liquid that you can pull out quickly and in case of an emergency. To get your 1 month's worth of expenses, I would tally up all of the last month's expenses, everything you spent on the month before that, then the month before that one. So 3 months total, then take the average of those 3 to calculate your 1 month. Where to store liquid money? When I say liquid, that just means it's quick, something you can pull out quick. It's usually like a checkings account, savings account. Those are decent places, but you definitely need it liquid. It's got to be ready to go, readily available to use. Liquid, like an athlete drinking liquid, it's got to be right there when they need it. It's got to be ready. The purpose is to have cash or cash equivalents to pay bills whenever necessary. It should be insanely easy for you to access this money when you need it for emergencies. So, with that being said, I want to talk about high yield online savings account. This is if you want to do it big. I suggest doing this, but what the heck is even that? It's a savings account online. It's really what it is. It's a savings account that is federally insured. Most are insured between $250K and $500K, that earns rates that are far higher than the national average. So, for example, they can earn around 0.5% APY, which is the annual percentage yield, basically like an interest rate. And the rest of the nation's savings average is about 0.04. So it's a pretty big difference. Why is this important? All right, let's crunch some numbers. Some practical real deal numbers here. Let's say you have 10K and it's been in a high interest savings account for a year with a 0.50 APY. You'd earn a little more than $50 after a year. Oh man, I bet you're sold now. I bet you're like, let's do it. I'm going to be filthy rich. But seriously, compare that to a normal savings account with a 0.07 APY, which is currently the national average. You'd earn about $7. Makes a difference. In my opinion, it does. So how do you choose an online high yield savings account? There are a few main factors when it comes to choosing a high yield savings account. And there are a lot of things just to keep in mind when choosing. First, of course, we want the absolute highest interest rate we can get without taking on any service charges. Fees are our enemy here. We don't want any fees. Accessibility of funds. Usually, if they can provide you with a card, you're in the clear. That means you can tap into it whenever you need it. ATMs online to transfer quickly. The whole purpose of an emergency fund is to have immediate use of it. You got to make sure it's federally insured. I can't think of any that aren't, but it's always good to make sure. This means that your money is safe in the event that something happened to the online bank or your online money was just suddenly lost at sea. The government would step in and reimburse you. Make sure the customer service is good. I say this because this entire banking system is online. This is going to be more important than if you could walk up to a brick and mortar location. This is like you're going to have to call them on the phone or something like that. Talk to them online. Other notable mentions are the opening deposit. Most let you open an account with $0, but always good to be sure. Some are like you need $100, etc. Minimum balance requirement. How much do you need in the account to not be penalized? How often and how quickly you can transfer money? Can you get money through an ATM? Do they have a good app? Most let you take pictures of your checks, make withdrawals, deposits, etc., all through an app. So make sure their app has everything that you need. In my personal experience, most online high yield savings accounts have really good apps because it's all online. They should be good, but make sure the one you choose is. Things to be aware of with these high yield savings accounts is the first is that the interest rates do fluctuate. They are not set in stone, and the advertised rate may not remain that way forever. However, it'll almost always be a higher than a normal savings account. So still worth it in my opinion. And I'll stress this again, make sure your savings are accessible. Some online banks only allow up to a certain number of withdrawals a month before you hit a fee. This isn't going to affect us really because it's only for emergencies. The only time it'll come into play is if you're saving up to an amount and are throwing money into it all the time and they're, money pulling money, moving around, things like that. But that should not be an issue with us. We covered saving up a 1 month emergency fund. Next thing is, because I said there's two, is if your employer offers a retirement account with an employee match, I think you should match it. So what's an employee match? Employer match, there's 3 different types that we're going to cover: dollar for dollar, partial match, and a tier match. But essentially, an employer match is when your employer offers to match a certain amount into your retirement account. Oftentimes it's a 401k, but it doesn't have to be. My work offers a matching TSP, which is a thrift savings account. And how they match also depends. So the dollar for dollar match, this is my main man, Christian here. No idea who he is, just found a stock image. Christian is a graphic designer with a gross monthly take-home pay of $6,000. I know, he's got it going on. So let's say he gets paid twice a month and decides to defer 5% of his pre-tax pay every pay period, or $150, which is 5% times 3,000, biweekly, twice a month. Then his employer, Tinder, let's just say he's employed by Tinder, has a 401k plan that generously offers a dollar for dollar match up to 5% of compensation deferred. So with each time he gets paid, $150 of Christian's pay goes to his 401k account on a pre-tax basis. And Tinder also matches a $150 match contribution to Christian's 401k account. That's pretty cool, dollar for dollar. However, at a 5% contribution rate, Christian is maximizing his employer contribution amount. If he reduced his contribution to 4%, his company matching contribution will also drop to 4%. However, if he increased his contribution to 6%, his employer would still cap out at only 5%. Does that make sense? Basically, if your company offers 5% matching, you throw in your full 5% and they'll throw in their full 5%. If your company offers 5% and you throw in 4%, the company is only going to match your 4% because they have to match something. They're only matching your 4%. If your company offers 5% and you put in your 6%, your company will match you 5% and you can put in as much as you want, and your employer will only go up to that certain percentage. Cool? Does that make sense? I feel like that makes sense. Partial match. This is Deborah. She just graduated from school and her new employer offers a partial match. She just so happens to make the exact same amount as Christian to make our numbers easier. So Deborah works for Burt Bees Chapstick, and Burt Bees Chapstick has a 401k plan. This is all made up. Has a 401k plan that matches 50% on the first 5% of compensation deferred. Essentially, this means that they will match half of the 401k contributions made by Deborah up to 5%. So if Deborah contributes $150 to the 401k plan, Burt's Bees will throw $75 on top of her contribution as the match. Got it? Matching half of her first 5%. Tiered match. This is my homie John. John also makes $3,000 biweekly. John's employer does a tiered match. Tiered match is usually a blend between dollar for dollar and partial. Each tier has its own percentage attached to it. For example, John's employer, say it's Apple, matches 100% of deferrals up to 3% of his compensation and 50% on the next 3. So John contributes 5% of his $3,000. So his employer would match dollar for dollar on the first 3% of his contribution, which is the 3% times 3,000, which is $90. And then 50 cents per dollar on the remaining 2%, which is 2% times 3,000, it equals $60 divided by 2. In total, John will have contributed $150 and his employer would have matched a total of $120 Does that make sense? He gave his full 5%. They matched the 3%, and then they did half of the remaining 2% that he gave. So tiers are different based on employer. It's not a one size fits all. They all mix it up depending on what they want to give or save. So why do I say do these two things before you consider cranking out your debt? Even though from here on out, we're going to be putting all of our extra dollars toward our debt, all of it, all of our dollars toward our extra debt, all of our extra dollars toward our debt. It's important to have a tiny nest egg saved in case something unexpected were to occur. The average American cannot afford a $500 medical bill. 1 month expenses is a great foundation to lay for yourself to provide a little safety if you get caught in a pickle. Next, you need to take advantage of the employer match because it's free money. It should be very hard to turn down free money. Can I get an amen? Concluding thoughts. That was a fire hose of information. I ran through it very quickly. Do those two things. If you have trouble setting it up with your employer match, just call them, see if they have it. If you're feeling overwhelmed or overloaded, I'm about to make it very easy on you. Just focus on getting a 1 month emergency fund in place. It is more important to have saved the money than it is to have chosen the right account to put it in. So if you're feeling discouraged by the account to choose, just save the money in a savings account you have now. You can always find a high yield account down the road. You know, it's not like your money has to sit in the same spot forever. So don't get overwhelmed by that, but make sure you save the money. It's more important to save the expenses, you know, save the 1 month expenses. Don't make it tough on yourself. Remember, easy is sexy and friction is unattractive. So just make sure you get them done. Secondly, just ask your employer if they offer matching. Everything I mentioned is good information to know, but your employer should be able to set you up easily. Don't freak out thinking you have to have those three types of matching memorized. But then again, you might, because there may be a quiz coming your way. Maybe. I'll see you in the next lesson. We're going to start budgeting. Let's get it.